Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, getting to the heart of the matter, defibrillators distributed in northeast Lincolnshire, how to get ahead in business, young people learning enterprising skills, and I'll be talking to John Henson and Darren Holt of the Yorkshire and Humber Parkinson Awareness Group. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Richards. First of all, it's over to Emma Lingard for the news headlines.
Hello. A Grimsby charity is counting the costs of vandalism days after repairing a previously vandalised roof. The Rock Foundation, which assists people with learning needs, has just had £20,000 of roof repairs when vandals struck again, this time also damaging windows. Pamela Hodge, the charity's founder, and Matthew Huffenden, the assistant manager, had a message for the youths.
I would say imagine it's your brother or sister that's coming here. Imagine it's your brother or sister that's affected. I think if they could understand that, they would have a totally different perspective on what they're doing. You know, to them it's just a roof, it's some slates, it's a window, it's a bit of metal. But to the guys that come here, it's another home.
Eddie Izzard has given his support to Grimsby's Labour candidate. With political aspirations himself to be the next Mayor of London, the comedian said a vote for UKIP was a vote for the Tories.
We are working hard for the NHS. People in UKIP, if they vote for UKIP, they are more Tory than the Tories. They're not going to look after the NHS. We're going to put in 20,000 more nurses, 8,000 more GPs, 5,000 more care workers. That's what we're doing. It's a safe thing. The NHS is safer in our hands. And if you do vote for UKIP, well, probably David Cameron will get in, and then that's going to do nothing for the NHS.
The area's largest affordable housing provider is searching for a new chairperson. Karen Rastall, the current holder, will step down from the Shoreline Board in September. Applicants need to show a strong track record of leadership in a major organisation. A newly planted woodland in Grimsby has been nominated for an award. A couple of months after the planting of the Longitude Wood site, the project, which turned what was an unused piece of land into a woodland and nature site, has been nominated for the Lincolnshire Wildlife Environmental Community Award. Christina McGilligan-Fell, director of the John Harrison Foundation, is excited about the nomination.
The judges, when they come on site next week, they'll be walking and talking and hoping to talk to some of the locals and gathering information, and they can see, you know, quite clearly, as you can see and everybody can see now, there's a wonderful growth to the new trees, and the whips are coming up superbly, and it's really evident that the people are enjoying it, which is hugely important.
And that's all for now. Goodbye.
Life-saving training and equipment are now available across northeast Lincolnshire. Grimsby swimming pool, the auditorium, libraries and other leisure facilities all now have defibrillators, meaning life-saving care can be given at a moment's notice. Defibrillators momentarily stop the heart, allowing it to restart correctly in the event of a cardiac arrest. Needing to brush up on his life-saving skills, Richard Morris went to find out more.
Links Inspire, which operates library, auditorium and leisure facilities across the North East Lincolnshire region, has announced they are installing defibrillators in all their buildings. They cost just under £1,000 each, and Sue Wells, Chief Executive of Links Inspire, says it's fully worth the investment.
Well, today actually what we're announcing is the training and the provision of defibrillators across all our facilities, which we feel is so important to support our customers and to make sure they get the swiftest treatment possible should they get into difficulty. So all our staff, over 90 staff in the first tranche, are going through training in how to use this equipment safely. And it means that we'll have staff at every site who've had the training and the competency then to utilise the equipment if it's needed, and a defibrillator will be based in all our leisure centres, plus our sports development facility at Bradley and also Grimsby Auditorium, our theatre.
A man who has personal experience of a cardiac arrest, Chris Solomons, says it's a great investment for the public spaces. He shares his story.
On the way to work, I started getting chest pains, central chest pains, and I'm thinking, is this what I think it is? Yes, I could have turned around and gone home, but I won't be speaking to you today. So I just carried on driving. I get into work. The crew were already there, luckily. They noticed that there was something major going on, hooked me up to a defib, the ones that they use in the ambulance service. Noticed I was having a massive heart attack, and then within 10 minutes of me getting into it, I'd gone into cardiac arrest. The rest, as we say, is history, because it was all filmed by the BBC for the programme Helicopter Heroes. I can speak from personal experience because I've survived a cardiac arrest. Yes, I was in the right place at the right time, but it is very important to have these defibs in public places, not just in leisure centres, but in shopping malls, in schools and stuff like that, because anybody could have a cardiac arrest at any time.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later, Emma Lingard will be back in the studio to have a look at some of the weekend's news stories, and Dan Kemp will bring you all the sports news. I'm joined now by John Hinson and Darren Holt of the Yorkshire and Humber Parkinson's Awareness Group. Gentlemen, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
It is Parkinson's Awareness Week this week, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
That's right.
Tell me just a few of the events that are going on to mark that, Darren.
We have a stall tomorrow at St Stephen's shopping mall in Hull. We've had a couple recently, like Saturday morning in Beverley, morning coffee and Rare Garden Centre in Everingham yesterday. It's up and down the country in Northern Ireland. It's events all over there.
John, I know you don't particularly approve of the slogan chosen by Parkinson's Awareness Week.
Well, that's unfortunate. The slogan is "Up Be Friendly," but the message is genuine. And basically, what they're trying to do this year is make people aware that people with neurological conditions do struggle. It takes a while for them to do things, and they have trouble sort of quite often standing as well, particularly people with Parkinson's have trouble standing for long periods of time. So the message is up, you're friendly, and if you see somebody with Parkinson's or with an obvious neurological condition, give up a seat on a bus or on a train or whatever. Be kind to them in the supermarket queue. They do struggle with handling cash, and that's a problem that I personally have. Spend a lot of time handing over £5 and £10 notes because it's easier to give over a note than it is to handle lots of cash.
I should clarify, you're both sufferers of Parkinson's, and it has taken different forms for both of you. Darren, how does it affect you?
It's affected my balance, my walking. I've got a tremor, my legs can't keep still. It affects people in different ways. Everybody's different. Many Parkinson's have tremors, but I know a lot of people that have Parkinson's themselves but don't have tremors. As if everybody's different. And
it takes you slightly differently, John?
Yes, I've had it now for 6 years, and the way it affects me predominantly is sort of semi-paralysis, and I can't use the left-hand side of my body, particularly my arm. So lifting things and holding things can be quite difficult. Opening jars is difficult. Just daily chores that seem quite normal to most people.
Well, yes, I know that sometimes the condition means that you can appear as if you've had a couple of drinks for breakfast.
Yes.
And people are unkind or impatient about that.
Well, I lived near a school, and I've got an electric scooter, and you can tell students look at you thinking, he must be pulling the fast one, he must be lazy, but if they took the time and effort to ask me what was wrong, instead of just staring and looking and thinking the worst, by all means I'd tell them.
Well, we'll come back in a moment. Please don't go away and talk about some more about Parkinson's Week and how people can become more aware and take part. But for the moment, gents, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Teaching youngsters skills for the world of work is increasingly important in an ever more sophisticated economy, but many employers complain about a lack of skills amongst school leavers. With that in mind, changes are afoot in our region. Emma Lingard went to Killingholme to find out how a global giant is helping youngsters on its doorstep.
With the region's industry growing and changing, a skilled workforce is needed to fill the jobs. And while training academies are being set up, one primary school in North Lincolnshire has taken the initiative and set up an enterprise suite.
We want to give our children the best start, and the best start is to catch the imagination at a very young age. We give our children direction with employability skills and enterprise and working alongside businesses, so that in the future the children have a clear direction of where they want to go. They're aware of the opportunities that are available to them. It's absolutely paramount that we get this across to children.
The suite was able to go ahead thanks to a generous cash donation from one of the Humber Bank refineries, who are keen to get young people interested in work.
I think we've tried in the past, and we continue to try and inject ourselves all through the age spectrum. And so we offer apprentice schemes, which is a little unusual compared to some of our peer companies. And we've focused in the past on later year education. And we believe there's probably more benefit to get in earlier and educate at this age and show people what's on the door, so give them something to aspire to and help them through the journey. So help them at this stage and then help them at the next stage, and ultimately try and generate a workforce that's on our own doorstep to take over the jobs for a business that we hope will be here for a long time to come.
Since its opening, the children have been using the new facilities to develop business ideas and their own employability skills.
Because when you grow up and look for a job, they're not going to be looking for people who are all like selfish and want to do everything themselves, but they're looking for people who will let other people try and do something that will actually could be better, or that could be exactly the same but could work out better.
What our class usually uses it for is we use the iPads to help us with our work, and we use it for other things like cooking club, for example. We use the kitchen here because of other things that are going around the school at that time. And we also benefit from it because it helps us with our learning, and by using technology it will help us with our work in the future.
Well, I use the Enterprise Suite to help boost my confidence, and I try merge with other students trying to get stuck in a bit more, and I also like to use it to help my enterprise skills, and for that my following job in the future.
John Hinson and Darren Holt are still with me discussing Parkinson's awareness. John, how many people suffer Parkinson's?
Nationally, there's about 127,000, they reckon. It works out about 1 in 500 people. So as the population increases over the next few years, which is expected to do, there will be larger numbers of people suffering with Parkinson's. So that's part of the reason why we want to make people more aware of the condition.
And so that's how many people around Hull and the East Riding is where
well,
you're
we know in Hull and East Riding that we have just short of 400 people on our database who have shown an interest, and that's people affected by Parkinson's, not necessarily people with Parkinson's. So they might be a carer, they might have a father or a mother or what have you, who has Parkinson's. So we know there are at least 400 people affected by it in the north of the Humber.
And Darren, one tends to think that it's an older person's condition, but you're both young, but you're not at all old.
I was diagnosed when I was 35. First of all, I didn't take it in. I thought, because I always assumed Parkinson's was older generation. But a couple of days later, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, oh no, life's changing for the worse. But in a way it has, but it's learning to cope with what you've got rather than suffer. It's just managing and coping with it.
But it can affect younger people just as much as older people.
Oh, definitely. It's not as rare as you think.
What causes it? What's the mechanics of the condition, John?
The problem's caused by a lack of dopamine. The reasons why the dopamine is not produced and the brain cells that are killed off are caused, nobody knows. But the dopamine controls emotions, mobility, amongst other things. And that's mainly the symptoms that occur within Parkinson's. So it takes about 30, I think it's down to about, after 70% of the brain cells have died, you start to get the symptoms. So quite a lot of the brain cells have disappeared before you actually show.
So there's a
signs
lot
of
of damage
Parkinson's.
before you even know there's a problem.
Indeed, yeah.
And Darren, because of those physical consequences, there's a lack of independence.
Yeah, unfortunately I freeze like in the doorway where the going to the next room, sometimes I can't get through. I believe that's the cause of losing my driving licence, medical-wise.
Sure. Well, it seems logical that if you're not entirely in control of your bodies, you can't drive.
Heaven forbid if something happened, you'd feel terrible. But it's the lack of. It's just like going out the house. I just pop to shop.
What can people do if they want to get involved in Parkinson's awareness? Contribute money, contribute time.
Right, well, we're obviously at St Stephen's tomorrow, so if you're in the area in Hull, come and visit us. We'll be there all day. But if you look on the website, do a Google search for Parkinson's Hull. It's the first thing that comes up on the screen.
Okay.
So that's the best place to find help.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Reflections this week from the Reverend Kate Toogood, no obvious puns please, from St James's Church in Louth.
This Easter season, as we reflect on the death and resurrection of Jesus, a number of different themes arise and many emotions are felt. But for me, one of the most overriding emotions is that of love. In the death and resurrection of Jesus, we see the ultimate act of sacrificial love from a God who created us in love, a God who himself is love. Recently, I've been reflecting on our sense of worth as humans, how we don't always see each other and ourselves as God sees us, and therefore don't value each other and ourselves as God values us. One of the passages of Scripture I've been looking at is from John's Gospel, chapter 3, verse 16, where we hear, "So God loved the world, that he gave his only Son, so that all who believe in him may not perish, but have eternal life." In this world, our value is so often dependent on material wealth or status. We look around at what others have and what others are and define ourselves that way. But in the death and resurrection of Jesus, we see the love of God, a love so incomprehensible and immeasurable to us as humans. And this is the love that speaks powerfully of our sense of worth, our intrinsic worth, in the eyes of the God who created each one of us in love.
Emma Lingard's back in the studio to round up some of the stories that broke over the weekend. Emma, hello.
Hello, Hugh. Yes, it's been a busy weekend, I think, really, for news.
You found something about beer.
I usually come on here to talk about beer or ferrets, don't I? It was the Hull Real Ale and Cider Festival at the weekend at Holy Trinity Church in Hull, and they had record number of people. I think about 4,000 people went through the doors, according to the Hull Daily Mail. Basically, organisers say that was 1,000 up on last year, and people were actually queuing outside to get in, which I think is phenomenal because it's a 3-day event. I think this was it the second year that the church has held it? And, that is amazing, isn't it? You didn't go then, obviously.
I didn't, no, but I would have loved to have been there because the beer industry and the ale industry is one of the great successes, isn't it? And all these different small breweries.
It is. We featured the Atom Brewery, didn't we, the other week, and how successful that microbrewery is doing. But according to the organisers, they actually ran out of cider and hand-pulled ales. And again, it's just fabulous, really, for the area, isn't it? It's gone down really, really well.
I don't want to tempt fate by talking about a disaster, but you have a letter from an unfortunate vessel.
The Titanic, yes. Yeah, this was a letter that was addressed to the brother of a man in Grimsby. His brother was actually on the Titanic. I believe he was the officer, according to the story. James Moody was on board the Titanic, and he was the officer that saw the iceberg. And his body was never found, but the White Star Line, who obviously were the owners of the Titanic, sent a letter to the family demanding payment for the return of the officer's remains. And this letter was dated May the 7th, 1912, weeks after the Titanic had gone down, asking them, I think it was £20. Anyway, this letter went to auction over the weekend and it sold for a staggering £25,000.
Well,
they don't disclose who actually bought that letter.
But it does demonstrate that the White Star Line were absolutely horrible people, doesn't it?
Well, that's what they said. I think this is the first piece of evidence which actually showed demanding money from relatives to return bodies. I mean, at the end of the day, James's body wasn't found. It went down with the vessel. But yeah, while they said we were prepared to return the remains, we want paying for it. I think it was equivalent to like £2,100 in today's money.
Well, I would have thought that that is one of the least heroic stories coming from that disaster, Emma.
Sad, isn't it?
Thanks very much
Thank
for coming
you.
in. Time now for the sports stories with Dan Kemp.
A final minute Hakeem Adelakun goal rescued Scunthorpe United a point against Colchester United on Saturday. Theo Robinson had given the Iron a first half lead, but they then fell behind before Adelakun's deflected cross, which lifted United 5 points clear of the bottom three. Elsewhere, Scunthorpe Grimsby Town drew 2-2 at Southport. Jordan Chappell and Sean Pearson with the goals. That now means the Mariners will finish the regular season in third place in the conference ahead of the playoffs. And North Ferriby United ended a run of 4 defeats, drawing 2-2 at Leamington. Curtis Bateson and Jason St Just with the strikes. In Rugby League, both of our sides have made it through to the 6th round of the Challenge Cup. Hull FC won 34-12 at Bramall Lane against the Sheffield Eagles. Mark Minicello with the first of 6 tries for the Black and Whites. Meanwhile, Hull Kingston Rovers won 50 points to 30 at home to former Super League club Bradford Bulls. Josh Manteletto scored 4 tries and 7 penalties to reach the last 16 of the Cup. With under 2 weeks to go until the start of the inaugural Tour of Yorkshire, the team lists have been announced. Spectators at the start of the race in Bridlington next Friday will be able to see the likes of Sir Bradley Wiggins, Ed Clancy and German sprinter Marcel Kittel leave the Spa from the ceremonial start of the race before racing begins as they reach Sowerby Hall. And back to football in the Northern Counties East Premier. Cleethorpes Town won 2-1 at Maltby Main and Bridlington Town won 3-0 at Nostell Miners Welfare. Barton Town Old Boys drew 0-0 with Shore Lane Aquaforce. In Division 1, Botsford Town came through their Lincolnshire derby with Winterton Rangers 1-0. Louth Town beat Teversall 3-0, but there were heavy defeats for Grimsby Borough and Hall Road Rangers. And that's all for the sport.
That's all we have time for. If you have a story, contact details are on the screen, estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31553. Today is the anniversary of the Yorkshireman James Cook's discovery of Australia. So until tomorrow, good day.
Estuary TV's weather, sponsored by Hornsby's, celebrating 100 years in buses.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Any mist or fog patches will be short-lived on Tuesday, and all parts will see a fine sunny day with some light winds and only small amounts of cloud, a maximum temperature of 16 degrees. Wednesday will continue the largely fine weather with variable cloud and some light winds.
Estuary TV's weather, sponsored by Hornsby's, celebrating 100 years in buses.